welcome back to these series of videos on the idea scripting dialog. So we're almost finished our dialog. The last thing that we want to add in is the calendar for a date. Now, I'm not going to create that from scratch because if you go to my website, IDEAScripting.com, under idea snippets, I already have the code created, and we can just copy this code over and reuse it. So I'm just going to select the date picker. So here we can see we got the calendar. It gives us a nice little calendar. So this is something that I did several years ago because there was no calendars to be used, and I wanted something that forced a certain type of formatting for the dates, and having a calendar allows you to do that. So I created this code, I did some Google searches, found the algorithms to do the dates and everything like that, and then just use that. So I'm just going to open up the code here. And what I'm going to do first off is create the dialog for this. Now, an easy way to do this, so if we go back into the editor, notice whenever in the editor, we're not actually seeing any of the code that exists for the dialog that creates this. So what happens is whenever you're in the editor, IdeaScript will take the code, because there is code behind this, and create a visual representation of the dialog. So if you actually wanted to see what this dialog looked like, what you then have to do is open it up in a text editor. So in this instance, I'm looking at it here. This is directly the code within the site. So I'm just going to go and grab this information. So this is the dialog box for the date picker. So I'm just going to grab that. I'm going to copy it. I'm just going to go in here, and at the very top, I'm just going to paste it in. And now, in order to see this, what I need to do is I'm just going to save it. I'm going to close, and then I'm going to open it, reopen it. And when I reopen it, IDEA has taken, or the IDEAScript editor has taken that code and gone in for here and to give me the dialog. And here, this is just a bit of extra here. I can just go in and hide and make this a bit smaller. So this ends up being our dialog for the date picker. So that code is hidden in the background. Now I'm going to go back and forth because I'm just going to grab the code here. So I need some variables. So they have some constants here, and these customs are related to your computer local variables. It's more, these are more geared towards actually going in and actually going in case that you have different formats and stuff like that, or different languages or different regions formatting. So I'm just going to copy that, and I'm just going to place this at the very top. Then I'll go back here and I'll copy all this. So these are all the variables that are needed for this, and ultimately the S date is what's going to be holding the date. So again, I'll go in here, maybe I'll just put this down here. So far so good. So we don't need this. This is our calendar function, so we need that. So this is what actually makes it work in the background. As you can see, there's quite a bit of code. We also have a function to get the week. This function here we don't need because we've already got our basic menu. So I'm just going to copy this, and I'll just paste this at the end. And there's a few other things I want to go grab. The function days and month. So you're populating the month. Read local info. So we need all that information. So I'm just copying and pasting. Now the only thing I have to do is I have to go back to my original dialog, display it. And now actually I haven't actually gone in and put the calendar yet. So let's go back and look and see how I did it originally. So here I created a text box called date. And I'll just go in here and I'm going to create static text. And I'll just call this start date. There we go. And let's just go make sure it's the right same height. 40, that's fine. Let's go back again. Now I created another text box. So the text box is to hold the information. So I'll just call it text box. So it's actually an edit box. So this edit box, I'm going to just change it to, was it text start date. And then finally, I'm going to add in a button. As we can see here, they have, where's the button? Push button calendar. So I'm going to do that. So I'll create this button. Again, was it top? Just want to make sure they're all the same. So I'll change this to 30. This is 30. This is 30. And the ID here is, we'll change it to button calendar. And we'll just change that to calendar. So there we go. So now we've got the start date. We'll enter here and the calendar. So let's go back in and change the code to access this. So again, we're just going to create another case for this example. And we can go in and just grab this button. So if it's button calendar, so if I hit that button, then remember we created the one of the items here was the S date. So that's the date. So I'm going to use that. So the S date is equal to, and here we go, dialog demo dot, and we want the ID for this. So I'll tell you what I'm doing in a sec. So what I'm doing here is I'm going in, and there we go. Don't want to make sure there's any extra spaces. So what I'm doing here is I'm going in, grabbing the information that's already here and sending it to the calendar. And how I do that is I use the name of the dialog demo, and the ID to get that information. And I'm putting it in the variable, the date variable. Then I'm going to go call this. Before I call this, I gotta go in and make sure that I have a variable. So again, I'm just gonna add in here dim dialog date as DLG dialog. Sorry, DLG date picker. So here I've created a variable to reference my calendar. And then I can just go here. I've already had a button equals to dialog, and so on, and back and forth. And when the information comes back, it's going to be sending it back in that same variable sDate. So again, I can use the dialog text function along with the I wanted this text start date to put that information back in there. So what I'm doing is I'm going to grab this information, I'm going to send it to the calendar as the default date. If it's blank, then it defaults to today's date. And then whatever date I select in the dialog date picker gets sent back to the script, and using the sDate as a global variable, and gets placed back in this edit box. And the only other thing I want to do is, much like the help dialog, is I could have several calendar dialogs open at the same time. I don't want to do that, so I'm going to do the same thing. If not boolean, what did I call this? Calendar open, and then do an if, and what I'll just do is I'll set this to true since it's open, and once I were to come back I can set this to false. And here I'm going to just take this and I'm going to define it. So now I'm just going to save this, and let's run it and see if this works. So here we got the start date. Let's click on the calendar. It brings up the calendar. And there we go. We've got the date. Let's see if you notice. We've lost the month here. Just give me a sec. I got to remember. Okay, so sorry. I just remembered why that wasn't working. It's because we forgot one line of code. If you may remember when we were bringing this in, I have an array with all the months available. And what I did is there's a line of code at the very beginning where I go in and populate that array, and I forgot to copy that over. So that's why the month wasn't showing up. So I'm just going to add that. So we want to add this right at the very beginning. Now let's try this again. Calendar. Okay, we got the month. We select the day, and there it goes back and forth. If I go back here, let's go say November 16th. If I hit on the calendar, we're in November. So it goes back and forth. So that's how easy it is to add a calendar. As you can see in the example that I have on my website, I've got using start date and end date, so you can have multiple calendars and how that works. So just copying over the code makes it really easy to use the calendar without having to have a lot of scripting knowledge or everything on how to actually use it. So anyways, that's it for this video. So now we've got everything set up here. So the next one is going in, grabbing this information, and making sure that the information has been set up properly. You know, high values, we want to make sure that the person didn't enter ABCD or something like that. So I'll catch you in the next video. Thanks.